Hey, welcome back to the channel. It's Sarah from I Am Simple Natural Life. Thank you for joining me. If it's your first time here or if you've seen lots of videos but you still haven't subscribed, either way, do subscribe right now and then you'll get notifications of all the latest content. Currently, I schedule something once a week, but you know that could change and you need to know about it. So make sure you don't miss anything by clicking the subscribe and the bell button thing. Today I'm talking about the things I wished that somebody had told me when I started. And by started, I mean by making conscious choices in my life, making conscious improvements in my life. So I had 4 children under the age of 3.5, so within the space of 3.5 years. And I went from being the main breadwinner to being a stay-at-home mum. I still worked. I worked from home whilst also looking after them. I used to just get up very, very early in the morning and do my work then. So it was a really busy time, but I went from being like the main breadwinner to certainly not anywhere close to being financially independent and all that kind of stuff. So it's very much as a working stay-at-home mum, if that makes any sense. And I felt quite trapped. I loved being at home with the children. That was a choice. I could have got a different job and gone out to work. I wanted to stay at home with them, and yet I still did feel trapped in terms of I wasn't in control of my life. And so I don't think it matters whether you're going out to work, if you're not, if you've got children, if you don't. Maybe that resonates with you. Maybe you have that feeling of feeling trapped in your own life. And that's where I was, and it didn't feel good. You know, who wants to feel trapped? So to cut a long story short, one day I just thought, I've had enough of this and I'm going to start changing things. And I didn't feel that there was much I could change. Honestly, I felt things were happening to me, and I had no control over, you know, really what the day looked like or kind of how things were by the end of the month or whatever. I just felt stuff happened and I responded to it. And I just didn't want that anymore. And that was it. Literally, it was as simple as that I just decided I didn't want that anymore. And then I started to do what I now call the work, with a capital T and a capital W. Not easy to say, capital W. And that was fine. And I made changes over the years. More and more things changed and things kind of just got closer. I have a vision of how I want my life, and things have just moved closer and closer and closer towards that, and that's great. And I am now in a great place. I'm really loving my life, but it all started right back then, where I felt like I didn't have any choices, to just thinking, I'm just going to start making some changes. And I started really teeny tiny small. And if you've seen some of my other videos, you'll know kind of how that played out. But anyway, what I'm here to talk to you today about is the stuff that when I started that I wish I had known. And so I want to tell you, as it's a gift, that if you are early on in your journey, just the stuff that I wish someone had told me that just would have made things easier. So number 1, this is the biggest one as well. I'm going straight in. That real things aren't really the barrier. So I felt like I couldn't make the changes that I wanted to make in my life because I didn't have enough money. You know, and we weren't poor. You know, we're really fortunate people in that respect. We weren't at all. We weren't close to the breadline or whatever, but we still didn't have enough money every month to do what we wanted to do. You know, we were always budgeting and fudging things around a bit to, you know, to kind of make ends meet. So that felt like a real barrier to, you know, like, I've got this vision, I want this great abundant life. My life's not anywhere near that life. So I felt like money was a real barrier. I felt time was a real barrier. I had 4 children. When I had my 4th child, my first was 3.5. She's severely disabled. You know, at the age of 11, she can't talk. She has basic walking function now. So at the age of 3.5, she hadn't long learnt to sit up. You know, she's yeah. So that was hard. You know, so I had 4 very tiny children. So I didn't have time. I didn't have time to start making these changes in my life. How did I think I was going to have time for me? You know. So these were real things, the money, the time, real barriers. I didn't have family around that could help, because where we lived, my husband was in a full-time job, out of the house, you know. So those were real things. But what I realised in starting to make changes, then make more changes and more changes and more changes, that those barriers weren't really the thing that was stopping me. And I wish I'd known that at the beginning, because it would have made those changes a whole lot easier. If I knew that it wasn't actually the money and the time, I could have started making changes sooner. I actually could have done. And it was in doing the work, in terms of really looking at it more on a subconscious level and identifying the stories that I had around being a good mum, being a good wife, worrying about what people would think, feeling maybe that I'm not good enough, what if I fail, all these kind of stories that I needed to do the work on to release, to take me to the next level. So that was number 1. The second thing I wish I'd known, was that you have to do the work over and over and over again. I kind of thought that once I'd made some changes, suddenly it would just become really easy. You know, once I got used to feeling worthy enough, like once I thought I could spend money on myself, which was a lot to do with self-worth and stuff like that, watch my other videos, I thought that these changes would just, you know, be easy. And so I started really small. I started just buying myself a hot chocolate from a cafe every so often. That was my big step into allowing myself to spend money on me. And that was a really big deal at the time. And I kind of thought once I'd cracked that, then it would be okay. But still, years on, this is still a sort of a money block thing, or emotional block, that I still go through for the next thing and the next thing. And those things get bigger, but it's still, the work is there. And it's like an onion, and there's always more layers to unpeel. And you think you've dealt with the story and the self-worth, or the feeling maybe that you're not good enough and whatever, and you deal with it and you move on. And then there's this next bit. And I wish I'd known that at the beginning. I wish I'd known that it's going to be an ongoing thing, but it does get easier and it does get quicker. And the more you do it and the more you practice, the easier it gets. Number 3, I wish I had known the power of the work. So I wish I'd known, just by taking some really small steps, and really just small steps to unpick some of the beliefs that I had. We pick up we pick up most of our beliefs from the ages of about like 0 to 7, through like sort of conditioning through our parents and that sort of stuff. We learn at that early stage really what life's about and what we're about and what's safe and what is not safe. And when we get to an adult, some of those stories that were really important when we were like 4 and our survival was reliant upon a caregiver, and we needed their approval. And obviously they had their own stories. And sometimes when you're an adult, some of those stories are actually holding you back. They're not keeping you safe anymore. They're not doing their job. They did their job back then when you were 4, but it's time to let them go now. And in terms of doing that work, that you can make huge changes and shifts in your life. You're still the same person, but you're not holding yourself back anymore. And it's such a powerful thing to realize once you know how to do the techniques that work for you. So these are things like Ho'oponopono, breath work. I find yoga really helpful for me, both physically and it's mentally for me. Journaling, gratitude practice, all that kind of stuff. Got a blank mind now. Anyway, all that kind of stuff is the work. You can change your life just by doing those things, and the things that seem like a real barrier just kind of aren't such a barrier anymore. And then number 4. Stupid. Number 4, the effect of upper limiting. So this is kind of what I mean about when with the layers, and you work at it and you work at it and you work at it and you keep coming back and you keep coming back. It's to do with a thing called upper limiting, and I didn't know what this thing was. But what it means is, so let's say you've got your big vision, you got your goal, and it's going to be like, my goal is to treat myself to hot chocolates every now and again. And I get one and I do it, I get it. Yes, I've achieved this thing. Might even do it another time and another time. And you think, yeah, tick, done that. And then you get to this thing called upper limiting, which is where you stop making progress because your subconscious kicks in. It's almost like, yeah, you've done okay, that was okay, but no more. And you might still allow yourself to have the hot chocolates, but you're stopping yourself taking the next step, which is to get a muffin with your hot chocolate. And that's your subconscious working really hard to keep you safe by keeping you where you are, because that's what it knows. That's the safe bit. Even if it's crap, that's still safe. So that's where it wants you to be. And I wish I'd been aware of that, because sometimes I would beat myself up a bit thinking like, why can't I make changes? I say I want this life. I want this like lovely, abundant life. And yet, I can't even get myself a hot chocolate, and if you don't live in alignment and you're not making decisions from a place of like your vision, thinking, what would that person do? If you're not making those decisions, then you're never going to get there, so I'd get really frustrated with myself because I wouldn't be making the right decisions, the decisions that an abundant person living in abundance would make, for example. And that was the upper limiting. And that's when you notice it, when you're aware of it, you notice it, then you need to go back and unpick the stories again, unravel what's going on. You've reached a new level and now you want to move on. You need to do the work again. So I wish I'd known that. And then number five, the effect of my cycle. So for me, a menstrual cycle. For you, it may be a menstrual cycle, or it may be like to do with the moon as well. And for me, it's both of those actually. It's my menstrual cycle and my moon cycle. But particularly with this, I'm talking about my menstrual cycle, because once I understood it, and I didn't understand it until, I don't know, close to my 40s. Now I can work with it and I understand it. So just to give you a quick summary, With menstrual cycles, or also moon cycles, there are times of high energy and lower energy, and it's just a natural ebb and flow. So for me, I get high energy around menstruation, and then I get lower energy kind of in the run up to my period, and then a little bit afterwards. And that's all completely natural. I didn't know about this, because you don't, do you? Like, well, I don't know, maybe some people do. But society as a whole just expects women just to get on with it. Like, you know, the world's not going to stop turning just because you've got your period. Excuse me, that was another burp. You know, you're expected just to plow on and keep going and to show up in the same way every day, regardless. And once I understood my cycle, I've been able to really maximize that to my advantage. So on the times when I know I'm going to have more energy and feel like mozzie and like, yeah, I can do this, I'm gonna do this thing, my vision is there and I can achieve it, I can use that energy to take really big strides towards it. And then the times when I'm feeling a bit crap and I'm thinking, oh, my vision is so far away, I'm rubbish, I'm useless, I know that I'm only feeling like that because of where I am in my cycle. And that has been so empowering, because I don't feel like I'm going mad anymore. I don't need to completely beat myself up when I'm feeling crap and I think that I'm the unworthiest being on the earth, which, you know, I get that. And I can also make sure that I'm making the most of the times when I'm like, woohoo, life is great. Anyway, so that is my 5 things. Real things aren't the real barrier. Problem is I didn't do these in order that I've written them down. Okay, so number 1, I said real things aren't the real barrier. The never-ending cycle of doing the work, the power of doing the work. I might have got those muddled up in time, but anyway, you know, those 2. The effect of upper limiting and just recognizing it and knowing that I have to go back to do the work, and the effect of natural cycles on my energy and what that means in terms of making changes. So I hope that helps. Do subscribe to the channel and I'll see you next week. Bye.